Alrighty, Rich, do we have you on the line? Perfect. All right. Good evening,
Okay.
everybody. And thank you, Rich, for coming out to give this presentation for us. For those who are unfamiliar, Rich is probably one of the most prolific rail fan photographers of the last several decades in this area. If you're active on Facebook like I am, Rich certainly makes the rounds on all the Facebook pages and posts a lot of his work throughout the decades. There are lots of great stuff Rich has captured over the years. So tonight, Rich has generously put together a program for us on the New York and Long Branch of mostly his photography. So with that, Rich, the floor is yours.
All right, well, good evening. Yeah, as Richie said, most of my own photography. Uh, it dates back to the late 50s, actually. Just a quick little bio, I guess. I grew up in Hoboken in the late 40s, so born 1943. And it was an era that I got the tail end of steam on the Lackawanna Railroad. The public service trolleys were still running on the elevated. And I have recollections of all that. And as I got a little bit older, I spent a lot more time down at the Hoboken terminal watching how things were done on at that time, the Lackawanna, became Erie Lackawanna. And a local newsstand was selling Trains magazine. And when I started to actually subscribe to it, he had set it aside for me. And I started to read this stuff. And I watched how people like Don Wood composed a photograph, that sort of thing. Decided to try it myself. So what you're going to see is what I did over the 1956 or so until into New Jersey Transit. So we're not going to talk about it too much. I'm going to start sharing, and then we'll just go on. Okay, so do we see a North Jersey Coast timetable?
Yep, you're good.
Well, good. All right, very good. So New York and Long Branch Railroad. Um, in this particular case, it was Penn Central, but historically it was the Central Railroad in New Jersey, Jersey Central, and the Pennsylvania Railroad. So we're going to flip over to a map. And we're going to take a look at this. It's actually a map of the Jersey Central, but it tells the story pretty well. Now, the New York and Long Branch, milepost zero, is at actually the north end of the drawbridge on the Raritan River. So, for Jersey Central was the original operator of the New York and Long Branch, the Pennsylvania Railroad, threatening to build a parallel railroad, got trackage rights in the early days, 1880s. So, and that's how it lasted up until New Jersey, well, Conrail and then New Jersey Transit. So, timetable direction. Everything red here is Jersey Central. Coming out of Jersey City, over to North Bay, down through Port Reading, into Perth Amboy. Then we get to milepost zero on the New York and Long Branch. Keeping in mind everything out of Jersey City is westbound. So as we go east, we're still westbound. And this is the New York Long Branch. It gets down to Long Branch, and then this stretch, and any of you are familiar with it, station about every mile. It's 60-mile-an-hour railroad here. They probably don't even get up to that, making every stop. It's a pretty fast running here. This is 80-mile-an-hour railroad, and this is electrified to this point. Now, the Pennsylvania Rail figures into this. They come out of Penn Station, New York, go to Newark, work their way down, and then they get onto their Perth Amboy branch. And they actually join with the Jersey Central for, I think it's about 3 miles until they get to milepost zero. Then they're on the Long Branch. So we're going to do this geographically. And what I'm starting with is actually at Wood Tower, which is where the two railroads came together. So what we're looking at here now, I understand you might actually see my cheat sheet on the top there, 1967. I carried the camera with me all the time, and I just photographed when I could. So the weather's not always the best, but like I say, can't go back and reshoot this stuff. Okay, Wood Tower. We're standing actually on the Jersey Central, looking railroad west, which is toward Perth Amboy. The track coming in from the right is the Pennsylvania Railroad, and the MP 54s are dropping off. They're eastbound, and they're going to drop under the Jersey Central. And I do have a picture showing how that works right here. So I'm still standing on the CNJ, but here's the eastbound Penn Railroad train dropping down onto their original Perth Amboy branch. And that track that's going off into the fog continued right into downtown Perth Amboy and served industries down there. And they did have a passenger terminal, as such as it was in the early years. So, Wood Tower, and this shows the track layout. We Down here is the beginning of the Long Branch. The drawbridge is down here. I think you can see my cursor. Perth Amboy Station. It opens up a bit here, and a eastbound Penn Railroad train will drop down here, go underneath. There's the branch into Perth Amboy, and head up toward Rawway. And a westbound Penn Railroad train is going to come in this way, and the Wood Tower is right here. Okay, Bill Burke. This is obviously a news magazine clipping. It's the only picture I had of him, but just showing what the machine looked like at Wood Tower. All right, so we're going to work our way Railroad West, which is really south. But this is a RDC train that the CNJ ran in 1974, called the Mermaid. They tried to get a uh, resurrect a name that originally ran from Jim Thorpe or more Chunk down Tasbury Park, then called this the Mermaid, came out of Rawway, went to West State Street, Bayonne, and came down. It wasn't very successful from what I understand. It was a full train, and now it's down to two RDCs. But what this is showing you on the right is the Pennsy track that's dropping down, the eastbound Penn. And to the left of the RDCs is the westbound Pennsy train track coming down. And we're heading off. So at this point, we're actually on the CNJ. And it was a good place to look, great place for photography. I mean, everything funneled through there. And this was an interesting era because the CNJ had gotten quite a bit of equipment from the New Jersey Department of Transportation. After Amtrak came in, there was a lot of spare equipment sitting around. So what I was seeing here behind the 3679 here is a Missouri Pacific coach. And behind that, maybe some Rock Island stuff. It was a really interesting era. Uh, okay, MUs coming under the CNJ style signals and still there. You know, any of you around for this? I mean, this was a fantastic era. I mean, New Jersey Department of Transportation was really running some interesting streamliners. And then Amtrak sold off some of their E60s. Again, not the best day. MP54 is actually just sitting here at a drawbridge that's just behind me in this picture. Had been hit by a barge and was out of service. So trains were terminating here and they were using a bus bridge. But anyhow, we're working our way closer to the bridge. Kind of one of my favorites. It's a great road set, right? A pair of V8s and a GP40P and a matched set of Great Northern cars. All right, so from the riverbank in Perth Amboy, the morning parade coming across the bridge, the eastbound trains. And then we got the 4877, which was the GG1 restored to the Tuscan red color scheme. And I think I did. Hopefully, the next picture is here. Right. So, what's the real Tuscan red? That's a good debate for models, right? Which is the real one? But there they are, both in the same frame. And now that commuter club, that was actually, I think the car was actually owned by the club. They had it rebuilt by, uh, well, I guess at that time it would have been Conrail. But anyhow, it was rebuilt in Altoona. And it ran as a private car up until the time of the push-pull trains came in. But it was the last operating P70, at least in the mainline service. Okay, but it was a great place just to be there in the morning and get this parade of really interesting trains. And the local freight, sometimes light power would come down. They was still servicing things over at South Amboy. And this is now from the South Amboy side, telly shot looking north, westbound train. This is the bridge that will be replaced. The construction has started for a new lift bridge. Okay, CNJRDC. This is one of those days. I just couldn't do anything about it this particular day. They were going all the way to Tom's River. It may have been the last train to actually go down the Tom's River branch, but at least I got them coming through South Amboy. This photo here, you can see a GG1 up behind the SA Tower. The motor pit was off to the left. We'll see pictures of that in a moment. They would come across over the top and come down this connecting track. So they're waiting for clearance, and it will come down, cross over right where I'm standing, and back down and wait for the next eastbound coming up behind Deals. Okay, Jersey Central train was still with their heavyweight equipment. Uh, D units would go through that same move. They would come down, clear up. This is looking geographically north. They're sitting at the home signal. They're going to pull down through South Amboy Station and wait for the next train behind a G. Okay, Colburn, East Illinois, I believe that coach is 4877 before it got the red paint, and but and that was a regular P70. That wasn't the club car in this picture. Hey, JS1, the Jersey Central freight. Uh, at this time, at one time it ran during the night, but at this time it would leave Elizabethport somewhere around 10 o'clock in the morning. Great train to chase. And it was on its way to Bridgeton. So we'd go to Red Bank and then head down to New Jersey Southern, uh, down to Chatsworth, all the way down to Bridgeton. A lot of the business was sand, but they also had other commodities. 4876, the number of the locomotive that crashed through the bumping block at Washington Union Station during the Eisenhower administration inauguration. From what I've read, it's not really the same locomotive. They pulled the original one out and from various parts created another 4876. It's an interesting story if you do research on it. But anyhow, 4876. One day I was actually riding going down to Point Pleasant, C&J heavyweight. Okay, the MP54 is coming past SA Tower and a G backing down. Okay, we're getting into the Jersey Builder era, and that name came about because of the Empire Builder coaches that were running on the C&J lines. Okay, here's a match set with the GP40 running long hood. This is when it was still steam heat. And 77 backing down. Okay, it's an eastbound. And it's stucking under the overpass where it was actually the Camden and Amboy, where the Camden Amboy name is obviously Camden, but Amboy is South Amboy, where the coal trains, the original Camden Amboy, tied up. And that's all. We'll look at that in a moment. The MU yard. Uh, this is in later years, the G's would be laying over here, but at this point, they were still over at the motor pit. This is not mine, but it's got to be about, well, it's about 1956, I would think, something like that. And what is done here now, there's this subway or underpass in the distance. The G is pulled up, and you're going to see this, and just for anybody that's interested in operations, it started to notice this. The pot signal, the dwarf signal is right here. They've gone past it. And that shows up in multiple pictures, and shows up my pictures. What they would do is they would get the signal from SA, then occupy the block, but just keep clear so that an inbound light engine, in this case, would drop off its train and go up the connecting track and go to the engine facility. But anyhow, and that shows up in a number of pictures holding the signal. Okay, now this is one of my pictures, pretty early, 1964. And But the New York and Long Branch, the Jersey Central just ran whatever they had. It was part of their railroad for all practical purposes. This was an outpost for the Pennsylvania Railroad, and anything they didn't want on the main line would come here. And that explains the Baldwin Sharks. It also explains the steam being there until October of 57. It was the last mainline steam scheduled when the train from Jersey City terminated. Well, steam ended in October 57. But anyhow, uh, this guy is 5782 here, uh, 2,000 horsepower passenger Baldwin. Again, the Pennsy is the only one that had these locomotives, the passenger version. And again, there's the GG1 past the dwarf signal. And now there's a lot of hoppers here. And the coal dumpers may have still been working at this time. But anyhow, uh, Baldwin's going to go up to the right and then actually go over that bridge in the distance and back into the facility, which is close to where that oil water tank is. Okay. And eastbound heading out, this is when they still had Railway Express. It's the baggage car with something loaded in. And maybe mail. Seems to have the white card for the post office. Okay, so now I've done this geographically, but also chronologically. So we're kind of moving up in time before we leave South Amboy. Now, this is some of the earliest stuff, 1957, August. Um, I was there with my father down by the station, and an employee there says, you guys can go up there. Says, nobody's going to bother you. And I only had a, very obviously cheap camera, kid with a camera at this point. But this is what I got. One of the first Baldwins with a painted black and all this stuff. 612. This is the one that did the farewell trip. That was pretty well photographed. Because you got the motor pit up on the left there, a P5 sitting there. And I guess one other thing to point out, even on the diesel, they were dropping the coupler, just like they did on the K4 here. When you're just learning this stuff and you go to a place like this, it's really kind of magical. So now I've moved up into the color area. This is 1963. Oh, E44 is over there, or a switcher of some kind there. These two RS1s were kind of a matched pair, 5619, 5620. They only MU'd on the short hood. So they kind of kept in pairs. What they were assigned to there, I don't know. In the background, you can see a McMillan coal dumper and a lot of hopper cars sitting around. So it would still be operating at that time. It wasn't going to last too much longer. And of course, the coal dock on the left. But that was no longer in use. Okay, then up at the motor pit, let's see. Yeah, Richie mentioned before about posting stuff on Facebook. One of the benefits of that is that you get a lot of interesting feedback. And RS11 here, a little switcher. Um, I don't want to go back to anything, but you'll see the pictures of the GG1s that they all seem to have both pans raised. And somebody that worked there commented on one of the pictures a while back, and he said they did that so that the boarding crew knew that the locomotive or the motor had been serviced. It was kind of a local thing in South Amboy, apparently. But anyhow, we're looking at a bunch of units here and a RS11. There we go, all pans raised. Okay, the four SV9s, they were there for the sand trains that were running after the coal business was gone. Sand was being delivered there. And anyhow, these four SD9s show up in various places. They show up in an ore train on the Lehigh Valley going to Bethlehem Steel. But apparently they were assigned at this point to the sand trains. This kind of crummy picture in a way here, but this is the furthest east section of track in South Amboy, uh, behind the Motors diesel shop. And this is probably pretty close to where the original Camden and Amboy piers were. And, it goes back to the earliest days. The first railroad in New Jersey was from South Amboy down to Camden. Uh, One of the last strongholds of E7s, in this case, they're already out of service. But was one place to get E7s. So whatever they didn't want on the main line came down here. So now I mentioned about the MU yard. At this point now, the G's have moved over and they're being laid up here. Or the pit have been closed. And we're just getting into the Department of Transportation. We're looking east on what had been the coal yard and the arrival tracks. You got the Thoring sheds up here, if you can see the cursor. This was just all track everywhere. And you can see the electrification extended way down into there. Way over to the left is the locomotive facility, the coal dock. And there's the McMillan coal dump we saw earlier. So now we're moving along. It's 1980. And it's certainly still an interesting place. They're like Lackawanna units. I guess that goes not much comment on this, right? Southern Crescent, where it wound up in the Greece and South Amboy. That water column lasted until relatively modern times. And I don't think it was saved, which is kind of surprising. I mean, here's in 1981. That's from the steam era. Okay, so then we had this in 1981. And what it says on the cake, Go Big Red, the Jersey G, a video was put together of that. And if you can Google that and pull that up on YouTube, it's really professionally done about the GG1. Uh, it's really quite something to see, and it's quite a good, interesting video. It's kind of a source. They pasted before the Secaucus Junction station was built. That was just two tracks paralleling the turnpike. They paced the GG1 probably about 80 miles an hour, driving on the shoulder of the road. You got to see some of this footage. But anyhow, it's very well done and certainly worth watching. But anyhow, this was the normal day in 1981. Uh, this was a Jersey Central truck, and MHS was the one that actually was responsible for getting it painted up. I'm incorrect on that to jog my memory. But anyhow, uh, here she is. This was the first day in service. So this is all around South Amboy stuff coming in. New Arrow cars. Not mine. It's 1953. It's a commercial slide. Um, what were common down there, I don't recall seeing them, were Jersey Central's double-ended Baldwins. Uh, C&J was the only one that actually purchased these, so they were quite rare. And anyhow, one of them lasted, I guess, into the 70s, maybe, being a stationary boiler in Jersey City. Unfortunately, it didn't survive. All right, anyhow, let's see if we can get ourselves out of South Amboy here. So we got light power coming down, and some of these ectochromes have really faded. I've done the best I can with getting color restoration. Uh, the, Anyhow, here we go. So it's an AB set. There weren't many passenger Baldwins to begin with, and having a B unit, there weren't many of those to say the least. So anyhow, here comes the westbound with a full constants of P-70s. The G's going to drop off. And the red building on the left, that was the Raritan River office building. Torn down recently, but anyhow. And there's another little bit of local history. The crossing gate closest to me here on the right side is angled. There was a spur track or siding. Went off to a coal yard across the street. And the track is barely seen on the lower right corner. But anyhow, it's long gone. But anyhow, that was the reason for the gate being positioned like that. All right, so pulling across, and then that set us back on. This whole operation was right in front of you. You know, just from public land property, you can park your car and sit there and watch all this. Um, this CNJ guy come flying through. It was going to the racetrack, Monmouth Park, picking up a cloud of dust because everything else stopped here except for this. And then you can see that spur track in the lower right here. Off. Okay. Uh, this guy's on the MU track, which is actually really on the platform. Something by station. Okay. Yeah, I don't recall the circumstance 1963, but there are four E7s here. They didn't MU nose to nose, so something else is happening here. It's just a power move. 1966, the drawbridge had been hit, and they were running shuttle service. And then what's happened here in eastbound, coming up from Bay Head, pulled up. The E7 is backing on, take the train back west. Um, I really didn't tune into it at the time, but the car immediately to the left is ex Norfolk Western. It's not a P-70. The six-wheel truck or 12-wheel car. And I did ride one, maybe the same car, on the Buffalo Day Express sometime 64. So anyhow, it was actually a Jim Crow car. There had petitions in it. But anyhow, it was NW. Okay, this is someone else's photograph, but this is down where the steam locomotives would pull all the way down. When the diesels came, they didn't come this far down, but they get away from those apartment houses. And they sit there, but anyhow, waiting for the next westbound. And someone else, again, I don't know the photographers on these, but these were duplicate slides I purchased somewhere along the way. But this is my stuff. Going back, a kid with a camera pictures, August of 57. And that's the Raritan River interchange on the left. You wouldn't know that existed today. But engine cleaned the windows and said I paid attention to what Don Wood was doing when he posted his stuff in Trains magazine. And I'm not sure about that tender. I've been told it came from another locomotive that had been streamlined, but all I can tell you is it's different than the others. I think curved collar. Okay, this was actually a BF-16Z. In fact, anyhow, this was a one of the big passenger Baldwins that have been re-engined. The freight service apparently 1,600 horsepower. But anyhow, I happened to get it there, and he mentioned that the coupler has been dropped down. Still a traditional way of running things. Hey, so this would have been a Sunday morning. These things didn't MU nose to nose, and made a Sunday afternoon actually, as I recall, somewhere around 2:30. There was a power move. Even in the steam era, there were pictures of double-headed K4s with a three-car train coming up. And this is a relatively short train. There were apparently more westbounds than eastbounds, and they would balance it by doubling them up. But anyhow, so we got the three Baldwins on the left. They've got one guy waiting to go west. Just a little bit on operation, real quickly. This track here, well, of course, that's what locomotives lay up, but it also connects with the Raritan River. This little stub track here, the Raritan River interchange with Jersey Central was down close to where the end of the cattery was at this time. And this little section of track was here to allow the light locomotives to come down and not have to access the main running tracks. They would pull into this little stub track and then back all the way down to where the interchange was. Okay, there's a mail train coming up, 1964. I believe mail service ended right after this. It's happened to be, you get it. And there's another picture exactly like this kicking around on the internet. George Bristol was with me. Anybody remembers George? The late George died of a massive heart attack. Uh, but anyhow, yeah, he was standing right next to me in a decent photo of this mail train. And train masters, always a good catch. And I mentioned in the Canada, of course, it's been extended over to Long Branch now, but this point, this was a great photo op right here. So again, there's a mail car or railway express, maybe a mail car. I know there's some people, I think, watching that know this stuff. But anyhow, it's either mail or express. And again, the light power move. I can assure you those boulders are not MU'd with that E7. So we moved along a little bit. We're into 1975, 74. Things weren't good. Yeah. So you see sometimes three or four E8s go out on these trains, two prime movers in each unit. And like some people would say, lucky if one of them was still running when they got to Bayhead. For a photographer standpoint, rail enthusiast, this was fantastic stuff. I didn't have to commute on these trains, so it wasn't getting any better. But then there was the bright spot like JS1. They say it wasn't all sand, and I really don't know where those reefers are going. And here's SJ2, the eastbound, for looking enough to catch that. And the Jersey Builder. Things really were becoming a bit shabby. But things were brightening up, getting a little brighter. Uh, Original catenary extended to Matterhorn. So into the 80s, obviously New Jersey Transit's in the picture now. And this is pretty much near the end of the locomotive change. Just to record it. Okay, modern times 2006. Actually, I was down at this. This is where I had photographed the steam locomotives where the diesels would lay over. It's all been rearranged. It's a grade crossing. There are apartment houses down there now. But it was actually down to this. This was a special train run for the I think it was the 150th anniversary of Railway Age. I believe that's what it was. But anyhow, Bennett Leavitt's equipment along at Morristown and Erie. Just a quick sidelight to this. I was walking back to the station. I come down on a train, and a young mom with her child in the car pulls up alongside. She says, "So, I'm not stalking you." I said, "Yeah." She says, "Were those E units?" I says, "Well, as a matter of fact, they were." She says, my father's always told me about those things, and I actually got to see them myself. So anyhow. She was running for mayor of South Amboy. Didn't make it from what I understand, but anyhow. And here we go. So Morristown and Erie equipment. Just a really neat train. And the 120. Okay, getting down toward Morgan. An E70, E7 hanging on. Down along Raritan Bay. JS1 another day. Um, the covered sand hoppers would have been for like glass making, that sort of thing. These would be empties going back. Okay. Maybe probably one of the last pictures I got of an E70 in service, E7 in service. Okay, getting down to Morgan, the weather went bad. Drive down there on a nice day, and by the time you get there's a thunderstorm. But there's Morgan Draw. Okay, taking off the Highway 35 bridge. The steam popping off from the boiler. So Morgan Draw, still there. Just looks a little different. Electrification's advancing. And before it was electrification extended to Long Branch, the MUs did run down to Mattawan. Okay, milepost 4, all that stuff that we were looking at is only 4 miles from that drawbridge, from the north end of the drawbridge. Same place. Canada's not finished yet, it's still in the structure. CNJ style signals are still in place. Okay, again, commercial, or not commercial, but duplicate slide in my collection. But this is Mattawan. This one car looks like a one-car train. Might be going to Freehold, but also trains going to the Seashore branch, the Highlands, Atlantic Highlands would also be there. But anyhow, it was an express car on the siding to the left. And fortunately, that station survives. And this is one of mine, 1966. Um, RDC, that's going to go to the Atlantic Highlands at this time. 66, I believe they'd already pulled back from the Highlands. Anyhow, this one, I think that's my wife standing over on the left there. Yeah. Anyhow, you see this is line, it curves to the left. It'll cross the main line down at MR Towers, kind of out of sight behind the RDCs that are coming east. And the track to the right would go down to Freehold. So the 553 is waiting for this connection. As I recall, they didn't connect with the Penn Railroad train, so you only connected with CNJ. And whichever way he's going here, but he's going through the crossovers. You're looking railroad west, which is really east at this point. One of my postings on one of the groups, I said, I told me I need a new compass. I said, just check timetable direction before he sells me that. So this guy is going to go to the Atlantic Highlands, which is in the northeast direction. But keep in mind, it's a westbound train. And then he's going to cross all the way over and head off to the left. And then a bridge in the distance, think would be probably the Garden State Parkway. Okay, so MR Tower, Mattawan, uh, eastbound Shark. Uh, at one time, there was a pair of diamonds here. You could go from Freehold right across here and continue on to the Seashore Brain. Okay, now you can see Mattawan Station in the distance. Let's see. Just one little bit of trivia. That shed on the left is curved, but it doesn't really line up with the track. I understand that came from Somerville after the line to Flemington was abandoned, the South Branch, and they moved that shed here, but that had been in Somerville. But anyhow, Mattawan Station still intact. Okay, well, all right. All right, I pulled this. Kind of sharp it up. I pulled this off Google. But that's what the station looks like pretty much today. All right, so wire is still under construction. All right, and for the short time that the MUs did come down to Mattawan, they actually pulled into a short, I don't know, a couple hundred feet of electrified seashore branch layup. Okay, so working our way down through Hazlitt. This is pretty fast running even today. Um, probably for some of the fastest railroading. Middletown's original station, earliest station. SJ2 coming up from Bridgeton. And Middletown, the way it looked in 1986, um, get back, but again, another Google Street View, but that's what it looks like today. Okay, so down come across the Navesink River, C&J, all heavyweight cars, 1971. Let's see, this would be a Bayhead train. It's a red bank. It's electrified now, so the angle's still there. This was the late Gary Madden, a good friend, took this picture, 1975, uh, kind of commemorating the Blue Comet. And this was the Florida East Coast 148. They spent quite a bit of time in North Jersey. Ran on the Black River, ran on the Morristown and Erie, ran on the Erie Lackawanna at a Ridgewood, one wonderful weekend. And anyhow, it's been restored to service in Florida. Okay, JS1. SJ2, getting off the Navesink River. So this generated quite a bit of conversation. Why is this Penn Central, or previously would have been Pennsylvania Railroad, local freight? So, well, the reason he's on the reverse track at this point was clearing up for a passenger train. A couple of different stories, and maybe if there's any discussion after this, but I've heard two different stories on this. That the Penn Central, Pennsy, only dropped cars at certain places along the Long Branch, and then the Jersey Central actually spotted them. But I've also been told that's not true. So be that as it may, but here's the Penn Central freight on the Long Branch. Okay, Red Bank Station. Unfortunately, that survives. So Railroad West, we're kind of south here, but the Railroad West. Bank Tower for Red Bank. That's the Jersey Central heading off to the right. The New Jersey Southern, or in the time to be the Southern Division, and went down through Lakehurst, Lakewood, Lakehurst, Chatsworth, all the way down to Bridgeton, Winslow Junction, and that's where that JS1, SJ2 uh, would make their runs, daily runs. And then the track to the left, of course, is going down to Bayhead. This particular day, they were handing up orders, and I think so. Then the C&J was one of the last places they used the order hoop. So the engineer puts his hand through the hoop, takes the message off, which is here, and throws the hoop back down. And handing the message to the conductor. Fortunate enough to get a sand train, a construction sand, three RSs, and a whole bunch of coal hoppers. And this guy's going railroad east, heading toward that Navesink River Bridge. So how much sand would still be in those hoppers when they got, but from what I was just recently told that, you know, cars will wait upon delivery. So anyhow, sand train. And then this is my picture, 1976, stations being maintained. Uh, Bank Tower, friendly operator. Yeah, sure, come on up. And what we're looking at here, let's see, Railroad West on the New York and Long Branch, goes Railroad East, and Railroad West on the CNJ, and going down towards Lakewood. I mentioned the late George Brisso. There he is. That's my son, Rick. We can call him Rick. He's 56 years old. Um, and 50, 55 years. Anyhow, and then that's George's son, Kevin. On the right, and that's the operator with his hands in his pocket. So time moving on at Red Bank. And this is more recent. This is just a matter of back in April, I took this shot. So the station looks good. And even the interior has been maintained nicely, historically accurate from what I can tell. All right, so moving a little further railroad west takes us to Monmouth Park. And this is when there was still a private spur track where both the CNJ and the Pennsy trains could come in. Penn Railroad making the case that they're air conditioned because the Jersey Central trains were not, and but they also went directly into New York. By the time I got down to take these pictures, Jersey Central trains were no longer coming in. Been some time since trains have gone in there. There's a ex-New Haven grill car down in the middle there. From the grandstand. And then 1991, they were on display down there for some reason. They're not originally Erie, and they'd been restored to the Erie color scheme or restored replica tribute, and they did a number of fan trips. I've kind of lost touch where they are to this day. Anyhow, it certainly looked good there. Okay, well, Long Branch Station that replaced the more traditional wood frame structure, but this is long gone now. This has all been redeveloped down here. Electrification now in here. Um, you know, uh, during the beginning of the real restoration of rebuilding of the area, not restoration so much. A new station being built, high level platforms, and this is what Long Branch looks like today. Not necessarily one of those locomotives, but the electrification. Okay, moving down now, gotten past the end of electrification. This area hasn't changed all that much, although Elbron Station burned. Uh, but anyhow, this is where it's now 60-mile-an-hour railroads stationed about every mile. Neat train ride. There had been a truss bridge for the Coast Cities traction. The kind of a side of the road interurban that anybody knows the Springsteen song about Coast Cities coaches get ready to go to Atlantic City. Uh, Kind of the name takes off before New Jersey Transit ever knew it was Coast Cities Traction, then it became Coast Cities bus services, so Coast Cities Transit. But anyhow, having a trust bridge here. Okay, so Allenhurst, Bradley Beach. No, they weren't baby train masses, but they were H1544 or H1644. Can't really tell. They have 1500 horsepower or 1600 horsepower FMs. Okay, another Gary Madden picture. I need to stand to see this myself with Freedom Trade that made it to Bradley Beach. All right, Belmar. Um, Bridge is still there. The highway bridge has been redone. At that point, it was still a drawbridge. So if you were to stand at this location today, bridge is there, but the highway's got a big overpass. Anyhow, uh, Shark River. Okay, Manasquan. Manasquan Station burned. There's another building there that's still trains still stop there. There's a nice pub in it. And then they were referred to as subscription cars on the Jersey Central, and a number of their regular heavyweights uh, were in fact uh, like I guess clubs actually chartered them. I guess that's right. But in this case, the St. Lucie Sound was actually owned privately owned, but it ran in regular service as a club car. And this car, I believe, is in Ohio. I looked it up in very decent shape. But at this point, it was just a regular on a C&J running down the Bayhead. Okay, so we're moving along here. We're down at Point Pleasant, 1969, 65. Not much has changed here. The bridge is still there. You still got this wetlands and it's still photogenic. It's Highway 35 bridge. So take these shots. And yeah, the Mammoth, one of the three Blue Comet observation cars that survived. At this time, it was a subscription car. Yeah, you just, that's second car might be, it's Rock Island. Okay, the St. Lucie Sound. and the two club cars. Uh, we'll get to it in a minute, but there's the Bayhead Loop. So this train is going to go in, go around the loop. The obs car will then be east, and then of course the next westbound move will be on the tail end. But anyhow, go along. Okay, Point Pleasant Station, eastbound train. Uh, the highway was put through here, and that station was demolished. High-level platforms were built, and a fairly decent contemporary station, heated waiting room on the eastbound side now. But anyhow, so I mentioned about the loop. You know, the Penn trains coming out of Penn Station, New York, and come around this loop, and when they go back up through Penn Station, they go to Sunnyside, and they go around the loop again. So it's really a large model railroad in a way. But anyhow, this is obviously a Google satellite image, but this is still here today, and they still come around the loop. One of the stories I was told, so these homes built here, um, and they're relatively well, everything's relative modern time at this point, 40 years ago, whatever. Uh, Generally speaking, the midday trains will just come in reverse ends and go back out. But you got the rush hour trains come down later, and they come around the loop. Now it's dinner time, perhaps. Kids kind of hang out on the tracks, so they blow the horn, they ring the bell, the headlight swings all through. But people that bought this property that didn't even know the track was there. Some really interesting stories about lawsuits and things about all that. Anyhow, I haven't heard anything recent, so I assume it's all settled. But be that as it may, there's the loop. So let's move on here. Okay, so we're looking Railroad West, which is into the loop. The track going off to the left, this is Bayhead Junction. That little gantry there was for unloading something. That track actually was the Penn Railroad that continued all the way down through Lavalette, Seaside, went across Raritan Bay, over through Tom's River, uh, all the way out and went to Camden. It was a back road, the Atlantic Division. And where I'm down here in Berkeley Township, the right of way is right behind my house. Track came out. There was a bridge burned, trestle across the bay, 1948, I think, 47 or 48. Track was torn up in 49. Uh, but anyhow, but it's pretty much stayed intact. It's crossover and then the spur track for a while. See what else I got here. Okay, so we're looking railroad east from that Pennsy track. And there was a tower here, a small tower, not much, but more of a cabin. And okay, so trains coming in, so say some would run around that train, some go around the loop. Jersey Coast Club, that's at St. Lucie Sound. I think it was Atlanta Coastline car. Okay. And one of the club cars, subscription cars, they were always lettered lowercase. That's something to point out. Everybody's going to model one of these things. The Beachcomber. So this is an evening coming and going around the loop, 1974. In the steam era, locomotives be lined up here. Coming around the loop, bothering the locals. When I came around through the face into the sun properly, a chance to do some roster shots. This one I like. His literally the Empire Builder card, not relettered in any way, behind the Jersey Central locomotive. So put that on your layout. You can see it's not prototype. And then now here's one that's been relettered. And apparently they got matching paint because I noticed the Liberty head is is actually in the green color. And then that's what the yard looked like in 74. There's that last piece, 70 on the right. Beauty Club. Monmouth again. And let's see, this was the dealer. I think this is the one that's on Interstate 78 restaurant, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this era, no one would bother you. Just kind of letting they're going to take some pictures, sure. On the weekend, not much was going on. Anyhow, unknown photographer here, but one of the places that, okay, you know, okay, well, again, obviously, Old Bayhead. This is one of mine, I think 64. And I just put a record 2011. Things have changed. That neat little station is still there, the Head Junction Station. Okay, so just to finish this up, hit with the camera pictures. This is the 612, and I was there with my father, and the hostler said, "Come on, go open the cab. It's all right." So I took these two pictures, and next to the Baldwin Sharks, and we'll finish it up with that. And that is it, guys. Here I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rich. That was a great presentation. Um, yeah, lots of great stuff to see on the New York and Long Branch. I got a comment from Lloyd. Says George Barriso was a great guy. I had him as a biology teacher at James Caldwell High School in '75. I remember him at the time saying he worked on the Susquehanna during the summers he had off.
He did. Yeah, some good stories from that. Yeah, he did. Worked at Susquehanna, Brakeman.
Yeah, I believe I purchased some George Barriso slides.
Yeah, Jane, his wife Jane, some of the stuff went to, I think, Marty Zach sold on eBay. I think that's maybe a lot of it got out there.
Yeah, I think I
I'm
bought
not
some of
sure.
them up in the Amherst show.
Yeah. Yeah, fortunately, yeah. I mean, he and his wife were really close friends to Carol and me, so we shared a lot of interests other than the railroad too. We go to Broadway shows and stuff like that, go out dancing and that sort of thing. Be
Nice.
that as it may, she was very tuned into this. Like I mentioned my wife, company's been a lot of stuff. After George died, we're going through a lot of his slides and stuff, and there were all these pictures of his wife Jane and cab rides and stuff like that. She really knew the value of those slides, make sure everything was protected, and so nothing went in the tip. Like unfortunately, some things happened, but she
Yeah,
made sure everything was saved. Yeah,
that's
so we keep
great.
in touch with Jane. She's doing well.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um, we have a question from Jeff Jones. Do you know when the P-70 coaches switched from clear story roofs to round roof?
Well, I'm gonna say it was probably during the '60s because in my earlier picture, I have a couple of trains that are solid clear story roofs. Wouldn't have been overnight though. Would have been over a period of time as they went back out to Altoona for rebuilding. I would think.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, exact date. But actually looking at the dates on some of these photos, we could probably kind of pin it down. Like, well, it was that Penn Central P-70 that was had the clear story roof right at the end there. So it was one of the last ones.
Yeah, lots of great comments came in. Lots of thank yous for your presentation.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to appreciate the invitation to do it. It's nice to have an audience to actually see this stuff, and yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I think we peaked at about 110 audience members
oh,
between
that's good. It's
Zoom
a
and
nice number.
Facebook. Just a
Yeah,
comment from Tom Gallo. It says PRR
yeah.
had freight rights on the New York and Long Branch, but could only place cars in certain yards such as Red Bank and the south side. On the south side, Long Branch, they owned Seagirt. C&J would set cars to consignee. Only exception, PRR was allowed to place cars with perishables directly to consignee.
Okay, and that was from Tom Gallo, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Okay. Good. He would know.
might as
I,
well be
I
gospel.
won't debate that with the expert there.
Yeah,
Okay, Tom.
exactly,
Thanks.
exactly,
Yeah, Tom literally wrote the book. So okay.
exactly.
All right. Yeah. FEC car. Or somebody just said that St. Lucie was FEC. Okay. Yeah. U.S. mail,
Um,
but we're carrying their own bag. Okay.
yeah,
I'm just looking at the comments. That's Tom Gallo again, right here. Things are
yeah.
popping up here. Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, yeah. Somebody talked about the line off at Seagirt. Yeah. This was a long branch. I mean, when I was putting this together, how far do I want to go with this? How long did it run now? It ran, you know how long it was offhand?
How about an hour?
About an hour? Okay. Yeah, I stayed away from some of the other stuff. I mean, if it would be here for 2 hours before I start putting the Pennsy stuff in, the Seashore branch, stay with the long branch at this point.
Well, you'll have to
Yeah.
come back.
Well, I don't intentionally plan on going anywhere, so you know, yeah.
Well,
Uh,
we always like seeing stuff on the New Jersey, different New Jersey railroads. So Seashore Branch or some of the Penn lines would be interesting.
yeah, and yeah, just a plug to another group that I actually joined fairly recently. It's the West Jersey chapter at NRHS.
Hmm.
They are really active, and they have some really good publications, and
Yeah,
they are really good. And we're going to be doing a program for them, I think, in February.
awesome.
Um,
Yeah, they've put out a lot of great publications out over the years.
yeah,
A
because
lot of
after we moved, I mean, I lived in New Jersey all my life, but then once we moved down to Ocean County, I was let me learn a little more about this stuff, and I joined
yeah,
them, and then I saw the publications that go into great detail about this Atlantic division that's here.
yeah,
Uh, after the fire, the bridge fire, how they handle things. So anyhow, as I may have just mentioned, somebody else is looking for information on South Jersey. There's a plug somebody just wrote. Dave Homer. Okay, well, yeah, yeah. I get a dozen emails from Dave Homer a day, I think. So, but anyhow, yeah, there's a lot of good information out there. You saw what I did from the outside, talking to employees and all, getting inside information. Facebook has been a help with getting it out there, and I've been pretty. Yes, a lot of just wrote back. Uh, the let's see what I say. Anyhow, you know, because I'll be doing the Pennsylvania and Seashore lines for the West Jersey group. But yeah, I got a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm actively scanning my Reading stuff, which I'd never scanned, and I've been posting stuff on Reading fans or something, whatever the Facebook page is. It's pretty active. It's got 15,000 members.
wow.
You know, I hear from people all over the world when I post stuff. So it's fantastic. I mean, I know some people kind of wriggle their nose up a bit when I talk about Facebook. Well, we're not talking regular social media here.
Yeah,
I'm talking where you can actually share with a lot of people. And,
yeah, absolutely.
those of us that were here for back in the day, I mean, few and far between. And every year, you just get less and less. George Bristol, when he died, I mean, he was only 54. It was, you know, it's
That's
an
right.
eye opener. Up until that time, everybody was older. My parents, older friends, that sort of thing. When somebody your own age goes,
Yeah,
hmm, yeah,
that's
start
why
to
you gotta
think about
share the
things
stuff while you
differently.
can.
Well, right, then that's my point. I've got all this stuff, and it's all sitting in storage, climate controlled storage. I pull a file out, start scanning
Yeah,
as time allows, and share it.
that's how the
And then
stuff lives on.
the stuff lives on. I mean, if something happens, my wife knows the value of this stuff. I mean, we have
Yeah,
contact people that'll deal with it.
yeah,
But anyhow, I don't plan on leaving anytime soon, so let's see what happens.
Awesome.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I've certainly do another program. I mean, this
Yeah,
one was already together, so I just kind of tweaked it a little bit to keep it in reasonable length.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well, we'll certainly keep us in mind, Rich, if you want to
of
put something
course.
else together.
All right. Well, thanks again for the invitation, and thanks for the compliments. And
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, Rich. Have a good night. And
yeah, you guys too.
for those who are still logged on, we'll be meeting on the 11th of December at St. Elizabeth University and also on Zoom. This meeting's been recorded and will be posted the next few days on YouTube. So thank you so much. Thank you, Rich. Have a good night.
You're welcome. Good night, everyone.